Hey everybody, Habari Gani, how is everyone doing? I'm so glad to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us here on night two of A Modern Kwanzaa Celebration. I'm very excited to be with you. We have an amazing lineup tonight. If you were here last night, you were in for a special treat on night two. If you missed it, go back and catch night one after you see night two. You are going to be amazed at all of the information and the wonderful conversation that we had. I am Chanda Branch, mommy caster, founder, and cultural creative of Modern Black Mommy, where I energize Black women in every phase of motherhood around their parenting choices, challenges, and experiences so that we can redefine the task of raising Black children who are safe, happy, healthy, and whole. That's my mission. And you are supporting that mission just by being with us tonight. I'm so glad to see you. I'm really hoping that this live stream series of A Modern Kwanzaa Celebration is going to inspire you to learn about and to institute new traditions in your home. Maybe Kwanzaa isn't something that you celebrated before, or maybe you celebrated it in a very different way, much bigger, grander festivity was involved. But 2020 dictates that we do things a little bit differently. So I want to be on the front and leading edge of helping you guys to celebrate that and bring that into your homes, right? So this is not just about 7 nights of a Kwanzaa celebration. This is about developing a brand new mindset, a new frame that we can work through and live our lives, a new way of walking in the world using the 7 principles that Kwanzaa uplifts. And I think that this is a great time of year to embrace that. Founder Malana Karenga is very wise in using the time period just after Christmas into the new year when people are already thinking about their resolutions and how they want to walk forward into the new year. Their goals and their planning is already in the front of mind. So to place these principles as a framework for that goal setting is very wise. And I'm so excited that you guys get to be on the front edge of that. So this is night two, as I said, of our Kwanzaa celebration. I am going to first celebrate and acknowledge last night's guests. We had Minister Edith Berry, who came and represented the elders and poured libation. It was a beautiful ceremony. We also had Council Member Corey Branch representing District C and the former Mayor Pro Tem on board. And they had an amazing conversation with me about unity, umoja, which is the first principle of Kwanzaa. The second principle tonight that we are going to lift up with our special guest, Karen Arrington, is Kujichagulia, which means self-determination. So let's get into it. Let's rewind just a little bit and talk through the basics. Here's what you've got to know right now about Kwanzaa in order to enjoy the celebration with us tonight. So Kwanzaa was founded in 1966 by Malana Karenga, and it was a way to bring the Black community together after the tumultuous time period of the Civil Rights Movement. He understood that African Americans needed to celebrate family and community and culture. And he gave us this lens of these 7 principles, which are uniquely African in their nature, to help us celebrate that. It's a very specific lens to look through and approach these ideals. So Kwanzaa is celebrated in sevens. We celebrate 7 nights. We light 7 candles. There are 7 symbols. There are 7 principles. It is not an overtly religious holiday. Everyone is welcome. Christians are going to worship in their own sense. Muslims are going to join in that conversation. Atheists, those who are non-believers, those who lay their beliefs in the traditional African religions, everybody is welcome, and they all come to the table and bring their unique ways of celebrating Kwanzaa. It's a very unifying celebration in that sense. It does not lean to one religion or the other. All are welcome. And then also, this is traditionally an African American holiday. It is traditionally celebrated by Black people throughout the diaspora. That means anywhere where Black folks are. Now, This is a modern celebration, and I want to make it very, very clear that we welcome everyone. We want everyone to celebrate with us. This is an opportunity for our non-Black allies to come into the circle and to celebrate what is uniquely Black, what is uniquely African American. It's an opportunity for our allies to learn and to commune with us, to understand where we set our values, and to understand what it means to live past the historical traumas that have been laid on us. So we are looking for them to come in and to learn how to practice effective allyship, how to be a good ally as we move forward into a new era of greatness for our people, right? So why is Kwanzaa still important right now? 50 years after the founding, more than 50 years after the founding of this holiday, we're still finding ourselves facing some of the same issues that we were facing when this was instituted. And as a Black woman and as a mom, I find that disturbing. I don't like that. And I feel like we've got to understand that getting back to the roots of what this holiday symbolizes and means is one way that we can truly move our people and our culture forward and truly create better ways of moving through the world that are going to benefit the future generations so that they don't have to keep repeating the things that we've been through, so that they don't have to keep repeating the traumas and the bad experiences that we've had. They'll be able to be lifted up by what we have built, and they'll be able to move forward. So I started reading, I started researching, and in my reading and researching, I was pulling all of these things together and I was synthesizing this information through the lens of the year that was 2020, right? Through being isolated and not being able to celebrate in an in-gathering manner where we come together and unify in person. Not being able to connect in those very specific ways that we had traditionally. And so I said, well, it feels to me that this is a holiday that needs to be celebrated and uplifted, but maybe people don't necessarily know or understand how. And maybe they can't apply this new context to it. And so I literally wrote the book on the modern way to celebrate Kwanzaa, right? From the lens of being a Black mom and wanting to give this to my family so that we can walk out these principles and learn about them so that my little 2-year-old Carly can start out with these principles at the forefront. It won't be something that she has to approach later on. She'll already have this information. It will be part of who she is and how she moves in the world. So I wrote the book, Your Guide to A Modern Kwanzaa Celebration. You can get a copy of that. We'll show you and tell you how in a little while. But what I really want to do is get into the celebration itself tonight, right? I am super duper excited that we have a special guest tonight. And as soon as we light the candles, I'm going to bring her in. So tonight's candle lighting ceremony is going to be led by yours truly. And if you look behind me, you'll see that I have a modern Kinara. I was not able to find a Kinara already set up on short notice. And so I improvised because that's what Black moms do, right? We make it work. I ran out to the local Dollar Tree, which, although is not Black owned, is economically sound. And I found these amazing little candle holders in the right colors. You must have your black, your green, and your red candles. They are set up in a very specific order, and you light the candles in your Kinara in a very specific manner, right? So on the first night, we lifted up the concept and the principle of umoja, which is unity. That's your black candle, and the black candle represents the people, Black for the people, right? On this, the second night of Kwanzaa, Habari Gani, which means what's the news? Kujichagulia, self-determination, right? Self-determination is the last red candle on the outside. Kujichagulia means self-determination. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. And that is what we are going to do tonight with our special guest, Ms. Karen Arrington. Now, Karen Arrington is a tremendous force in presence in the world. Ms. Arrington is an award-winning author, a women's empowerment expert, and a global philanthropist, and the winner of an NAACP Image Award for outstanding literary work. Karen's coaching, mentoring, philanthropic work spans over 100,000 hours of service, including her position as a Goodwill ambassador to Sierra Leone, her work as the co-founder of the first Diabetes Awareness Day in West Africa, and her role as the founder of the Miss Black USA pageant. So we're going to learn much more about Miss Arrington in our conversation, and I want to welcome her on board. Miss Arrington.
Hello, Chanda. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. It's so good to hear from you. So, in honor of your presence tonight, I am wearing in my gele, if you can see, my crown pin. Boop.
Love
Right up there,
it.
right up front. I am so happy and so honored to have you on board tonight. And not only as Modern Black Mommy, which is my new brand and my new venture, but also as Ms. Black USA. So
Yes,
thank you.
yes. I love it. Love it. Thank you so much for having me. You are just a force to reckon with. This is amazing.
You're kind. You're kind. Thank you so much. I have I was thinking through the programming and all of the amazing people that I know and how they walk out these principles in their daily lives. And when I got to Kujichagulia, self-determination, I said, nope, Karen Arrington, that's it, moving on.
But
It was very, very clear to me that you represent most specifically in my life and in my world, what it means to decide for yourself and to move in your own way. And I am just absolutely amazed and floored that you are joining us from across the water. You are here on just under amazing circumstances. Tell everybody, if you would, how amazing it is for you to be with us tonight.
it is, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there on video due to security reasons, but I am just honored, to be a part of this. First of all, I always say that if you want something done, ask a woman, right? And you did.
Absolutely.
And there's so many opportunities, and what you've done with this program tonight is just, I think, a validation and confirmation that we all can do something and make an impact. So I really applaud you tonight, and I'm bowing down now, right now, to you.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for that recognition, because it is a lot of work and all of this happened quickly. I have to take a moment to thank our producer Lauren at RDU On Stage, because when it comes to uplifting women and uplifting the voices of women, she did not hesitate. I called her just a couple of days before Christmas and I said, this thought occurred to me. And she said, yes, let's do it. And the how and all of the other stuff was like, that was like fairy dust in the wind. We'll figure that out later. But yes, we're doing this. And so it like you said, it's a matter of you just gotta do it. And your life is a giant example of that. I mean, who we are is very much based in where we come from. Can you give us a little bit of information about your background and how you were brought up and how you came to be this force?
Well, I don't know about the force, but thank you for being so gracious. I grew up and as a daughter of civil rights activists. So I watched my parents daily give back and become a voice for others who were disenfranchised or marginalized. And so it really is a part of my DNA of who I am. And so, as I've grown older, I've sort of, become sort of that same symbol of being a voice for others. Because as you've already acknowledged, I mean, we've seen this year how we are still fighting the injustices that I that I saw and experienced, that my parents experienced, when I was a young girl.
Yeah.
So I grew up around, strong, beautiful, independent and powerful Black women. But these women I didn't see in mainstream media. And I still don't really see these women in mainstream media today. And so that's one of the reasons why I gave myself permission to start the Miss Black USA pageant, to elevate and celebrate and educate Black women.
And it's a tremendous program. It has so many tentacles. It has
It does.
reached out and spread. It's more than a beauty pageant. It's so much more than that. And I have to just thank you for creating space for all kinds of women to participate in that pageant system. So
Thank
my
you.
next question is, how did you begin, or when did you begin to self-actualize yourself as a woman, and specifically as a Black woman? When did that all come together for you?
Well, I talk about this in my book, Your Next Level Life, and I believe it started, as I said, in an early age. I was constantly reading about, powerful women, who came before us. And so they really inspired me to use whatever talents that I had to give back. I mean, women like, Harriet Tubman. In fact, I used to walk around my house, acting like I was Harriet Tubman, or Sojourner Truth. And I even remember in my first pageant doing a monologue, reciting, one of her speeches. So that really had an impact on me. And then as I got older, and more specifically in college, I just saw that there was just this huge, need to be able to do something, that was really impactful. And but it goes back also to when I was 13 years old. I remember I went to a middle school that was named in honor of a racist U.S. Supreme Court judge, Roger B. Taney. And I remember, because I was bused rather to the school, I remember thinking, how can any of us feel really connected to this, middle school, when this is the symbol of the school? And so I started a petition to have the school name changed. And several years later, it was changed eventually from Washington County to Thurgood Marshall Middle School. So I've always known that one person really can make a difference. And of course, when we work together, we are truly a force.
That's tremendous. And that's yet another connection between us. I actually started my teaching career in Florida at Thurgood Marshall Fundamental Middle School.
All right, love
So,
it. Isn't that something?
and that was one of the things that I found that my students didn't really understand, the weight and the magnitude of who this school was named for. And so that was something that I, as a teacher, always worked into my lessons, because I felt like you should not walk into these doors every day and not understand who this is named for and why it's significant, because I did have a large population of African American students and students of color. And so I love that that's a new connection between us that I hadn't realized.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet, look at you. You were doing the work that, here again, it's happening right now. There are students in schools that are named for people who uh, who named for folks who don't deserve that sort of an honor. And
Absolutely.
so I'm tremendously proud that you took that step, and that you are lifting that up so that students now can hear that and take that step themselves. And just helping them to realize that they don't have to wait for permission. They don't have to wait until they're older, that, their moment is now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So do you think that there's anything that your parents gave you? I know we've already touched on the fact that they were actively involved in civil rights, but do you think that there was anything else specifically that they gave you as a tool or a mindset that maybe Black kids are missing today?
Wow, that's a great question. I think what they did give me was, when you talk about mindset, is the mindset that, number one, is that I do belong, that I am enough, and that I can make a difference. And it was those, and of course, love. And it was those those four things that actually sort of guided my, my chart and my path. And of course, again, being around, in independent, strong Black women, my mother, her friends, and not seeing them really impacted me about the way Black women were portrayed in the world.
Mhm.
And it really had an effect on me. And so as I grew older, I felt that I had an obligation, a responsibility, to really give women the tools, inspiration, and connections they need to redefine their destinies and defy expectations. So that's where, my sort of life anthem has become to help women write the new rules of power, opportunity, and life-changing confidence.
That right there is self-determination. And this is one of the concepts, one of the principles of Kwanzaa that I had the most trouble wrapping my head around. And it came down to a simple like terminology, definition. We think of determination and we think I can, I will, I must. But this is really more about determining and choosing your path, where you want to be and what you want to have and how you want to be seen. And that for me was a major shift. So for you to have that concept at an early age really put you ahead of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it really did. And it really, as I said, sort of helped chart my path, to not just, finding, or co-founding or founding Miss Black USA, but also to co-founding, the first Diabetes Awareness Day in the Gambia, West Africa. I didn't wait for permission, to help, change sort of the life trajectory of African girls and women. I just decided that this is something that I wanted to do, and I did it. And of course, that opened up a whole new world of opportunities for me. And the same with, I didn't decide, or wait to write an award-winning book. In fact, I always tell people, if you think that you need, Toni Morrison level writing skills to write an award-winning book, you're wrong. I had no list, zero marketing budget, and never wrote a book before ever. But what I did have was a compelling story, a soul level calling to help women step into their next level life, whatever that looks like for them, an unwavering belief that the voices of Black women belong on the literary shelves.
Yes.
It's not only necessary, but essential that we tell our own stories. And so I wrote this tiny, book in 30 days. It was nominated for an NAACP Image Award, and then it won an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Works, and it's been flying off the shelf since. So again, I decided, and every single, person listening can decide, and chart their own path and not have to wait for permission.
I love that. And the book is phenomenal. I read it right at the top of the shutdown. It was one of the first things that I reached for. And it indeed propelled me out of that early COVID funk is what I refer to it as, that point where we were like, oh, wait, no, this is going to stretch out. For when we were first realizing what we were dealing with, I reached for things that were going to be inspirational, things that were going to inspire and uplift me, things that were going to broaden my mind. And that book was at the top of the list. And I'm so glad that you dug in and broke past whatever fear or apprehension you must have had about just doing it, just writing a book. It's more than a notion. And having done it myself recently, I know that there are lots of sleepless nights, and there's that thought that creeps up time and time again. Do you really think you're going to write this book? And you have to absolutely say, yes, I'm writing this book. Now be quiet. Go back to sleep. I'm working.
Absolutely. And I believe that that's really why it's so important to do things first in the spirit of serving, right?
Yes.
Because that really makes everything else sort of fall into place. I know in rule number, the book is actually has 7 rules. And the first rule I talk about, identifying your superpowers, because we all were born with these priceless gifts. And I just encourage women to find your superpowers, own them, and then leverage them like crazy.
Yep.
Um, and then even in rule number 2, we talk about, how to find your next level friends. Because I always say it's time to stop hanging with people who have your problem and hang with people who have your solution. And when you change your circle, your whole world changes. And mine certainly did. So these are some of the rules that I talk about and that I share that really encompass my life and my path, and how I was able to really chart my own course and destiny in life. And I even have a rule called Magnetize Money, where I talk about how to find all the grants, scholarships, sponsors, and entrepreneurial gold that you need, because money is
Absolutely.
everywhere. You just have to claim it. I did, and I share how I won several grants that literally took 30 minutes to apply online. I mean, many of these opportunities people just don't know about. And then, of course, my favorite rule is rule number 7, which is give back from day one. I
Mhm.
mean, this one is just like my life anthem. I always say, don't wait until someday to serve the world. You can become a mentor and share what you've learned. You can become a philanthropist or champion a cause, but more importantly, help others to rise. And so I even share how I didn't wait, as I said, to could co-found the Diabetes Awareness Day in West Africa. I did it, and of course, a whole world of opportunities arrived. So serve first.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And it goes somewhat back to night one when we talk about unity. When we talk about the fact that coming together sometimes is difficult because people are looking for the credit rather than just getting to the fix, getting to the solution. I
Mhm.
think that if we all came with that mindset of service first, that we probably would get a lot further, a lot faster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hear so much, in my world, I hear a lot of people focused on, how to make a million, and, or how to make 6 or 7 figures. I mean, you kind of see that like it's on overdrive. And
Yeah.
I'm always thinking, if you make a movement, the million will come.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Say that one more time.
If you make a movement, the million will come.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful because, and you're absolutely right because in launching my brand and preparing for everything that I have in store for Modern Black Mommy, I am on some of those groups, and it really just I get tired sometimes of the people who are chasing the money, and
Mhm.
I've even had a hard time like figuring out how to monetize the thing that I do because I'm so service driven. I created it out of the fact and the knowledge that I had a hard time as a new mom, even through my pregnancy and into
Mhm.
motherhood, because the material that was out there simply didn't speak to me specifically as a Black woman. It didn't speak to my values and my situation. And I did not want for other Black moms to suffer and struggle in the ways that I did if I could do anything about it. And so, again, that service first mindset, serving and letting everything else come into place, just kind of brings me back to that seek ye first.
Absolutely.
Oh
Absolutely.
my God, that is so wonderful. Let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
If you only had 3 words to define yourself as you are today, what would they be?
3 words: resilient,
Uh huh.
um, determined, and woo, I would definitely have to say um, spiritual.
Those are good. Those are good. And I didn't ask you that to stump you. I asked you that just to sort of help ground people in the fact that um, your words are not rich, your
Mhm.
words are not powerful, your words are not in adjectives and descriptors that we tend to chase these days. Your
Right.
words are really rooted in just a place of beauty, and I just love how you are able to distill everything you are into those three things, those three buttons. And my next question is sort of a two-part question. Do you think that others would define you in those same terms?
I would say yes. After writing the book, and again, as we were just talking about, serve first, and everything else will fall into place. I wrote the book for one person, literally one person, um, and I had like 200 people following me on Instagram. And so when I found out that the book was nominated for an Image Award, the first thing I wanted to know was, well, who's my competition, right?
Right,
So,
absolutely.
and so my attorney, she called me and she said, your competition is, this like well-known gospel singer. And honestly, I didn't even know who she was. So when she did tell me, I was just like, okay, this is a setup. This is a setup, but
Oh, man.
it's one thing to be nominated, and then it's another thing to hear your name called as a winner. And I remember sitting there right before they called my name, and I said, Lord, if it's your will, it will.
Mm-hmm.
And I was good regardless because I knew what I set out for this book to do. And so every day I started getting these messages, and I thought my inbox, I thought that these messages were it was spam, because like, why are people messaging? Like, why is my DM filling up?
Right.
And
Right.
something told me to just go ahead and check the messages. And so I started checking the messages, and I started reading these powerful, amazing stories from women who had read the book. And I thought, this is just like unbelievable. And one of the things that we all had in common, the readers and myself, is our resiliency.
Uh-huh.
Our resilience, being able to bounce back from challenges and overcome obstacles, regardless of what they look like. And then, of course, many of them, and I make it a point to make sure that people know that I am unapologetically like a woman of God, and so that spiritual piece had to be a part of the writing
Yeah.
experience in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it also gave a lot of these readers and the women who read it sort of a new look at their own spirituality and where they were on that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, of course, determined, because one of the things that they all said is that your conviction, your determination has really allowed me now to be more determined to chart my own path,
That's
to
right.
find my own place, to take up space. And so I would say absolutely. If it weren't for those messages, I'm not quite sure what three words that they would share, but certainly those were the ones that I received. And I receive
That's
it.
amazing. That's amazing. And I think it's all, I love what you just said. I receive it, because I think it's also important to reject those things that you don't identify with, and to be unapologetic in that rejection. Like, no, I'm not what you say I am. I am this. And I just
Absolutely.
feel like you have created space for other women to create space. And it's just like, if you've ever seen a balloon inside a balloon, like it fills up and then more fills up around it. And, it just stretches out at infinitum. And I'm so glad that, that women reach back to you after reading that piece, and let you know specifically how it had impacted you. That must have been an amazing feeling.
Oh, it is. I mean, many mornings I wake up and I'm in tears because of some of the messages that I received. Last week, I had a young girl who actually said that her school counselor gave her a copy of the book, and she had given up hope. She is in a is a she's not registered to be in the country, and
Mhm.
she's undocumented, and it just really like pulled at my heart to hear, a young girl who has these big dreams and hopes, and this is what America should be. And to
Yeah.
know that she, based on these past 4 years, had literally was ready to give up hope. And then she read that book and she just found a renewed sense of who she is and a new source of strength and inspiration. So absolutely.
Well, thank God that you listened to what you called earlier that soul calling and did your due diligence and wrote the book, because all I can think is how many women, how many girls out there um, are going to seize their power and are going to define themselves in new terms and work towards what they want simply because of your words and your inspiration. So thank you again for that. I can't tell you how much it means and how much it's needed. As a professional educator, I see those same girls in those same situations, and I'm just so happy that there is a resource for them to turn to.
Absolutely. And same with you. And as I said before, we need more Black authors. We need to tell our own stories. And so it's so important that, when your daughter or my nieces go on to, these sites, looking for literature and looking for sources of information and inspiration, that they can find authors that look like them, who they can relate to. It's so
Absolutely.
important because if we don't tell our own stories, somebody else is going to tell them and they will be a little twisted.
I was about to say they don't tend to get it right.
Yeah,
They don't tell it
exactly.
like we will tell it. Um,
Absolutely.
and that's why there's a segment at the end that we're going to get to. That's why that segment is so important to me, because I feel like there are resources that I am simply unaware of, and there are things that other people can bring to the table. So before you go this evening, we are going to talk a little bit more about building that book list and that resource list.
Okay.
Um, we've already talked about the perceptions of Black women that you found in the world. What do you really think is that the true impact of some of those perceptions of Black women and Black people that are in the world, and how can we grab a hold of some of those things and change some of those narratives?
Mhm. Well, I think one is it causes imposter syndrome. It
Amen.
causes us to not show up, in our or believe that we aren't enough. And
Right.
as a result, we don't take up space. As a result, we stay small, and we shrink. And that's why my book was so important because, as you know, through Miss Black USA,
Oh,
I have
yes.
powerhouse women like yourself. Okay, so but I don't see them. I don't see them on mainstream medium. I don't see you when I open up mainstream publications and magazines. And
Mhm.
yet I'm constantly surrounded by these incredible, phenomenal, young, talented, intelligent Black women, but I don't see them. So that's why it's so important, for you as a new author, and welcome to the Authors Club.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you. Thank
for,
you.
for others out there who have, who've been sitting on, whether or not they should write a book, I always say, remember, this book isn't about you. It's bigger than you. And when you and that should alone help you to start writing
Yes.
because of the impact that you will have and make on others who will follow you. Because I always say that if you climb the ladder of success, always take someone along with you. So I always make that sort of my mantra as well. And even in the book, we aren't like you mentioned, there's so many resources out there, that people don't know about.
Yeah.
I have a whole list of resources in my book that most people are like, you got to be kidding me. I never even knew that was even possible. There are medical schools that right now that you can actually go to medical school full year, 4 years free,
Yeah.
tuition free. I mean, there are grants. And as I talk about, I do a whole chapter on magnetizing money, how to find all the money you need. People are focused on, as I said, on six figures and seven figures. But if you've got to make a movement, you're going to make a million. And I talk about and share grants and things that I personally won. I mean, literally applying online in 30 seconds. I
Oh my God.
mean, and one was Jones, New York, the fashion um, outlet.
I
And
love story that you tell about that in the book. I love
Yes,
that.
I mean, I literally applied 30 minutes before the deadline. And I remember thinking to myself, first of all, let me Google real quick, who were the previous year's winners and like what did how did they win? What did they say? I literally couldn't spend much time on that, but I remember they were like Fortune 500. And I just thought, you know what? I could have, again, based on that, decided that I wasn't good enough, that I
Mm,
was going to shrink. But I knew that my purpose for this grant was bigger than me.
yeah.
And so what I did is I just laid it on the line and I just put it out there because really, what's the worst thing that they could do is to say no. And so 2 weeks later, this check came in the mail, an amazing wardrobe, and I was assigned also a party by Vanity Fair, and I was assigned a mentor in Dee Dee Myers. She was the first press secretary under President Bill Clinton in the White House. I
Whew,
mean, so a lot of these grants and opportunities also come with mentors, and they also come with other, benefits like wardrobes, fancy wardrobes.
right.
So, all of that information, a lot of those resources are, in the book, but these are things that, of course, and maybe, intentionally, we aren't told about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. If you're sitting waiting for somebody to put it in your lap, that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
You gotta
Exactly.
go find it. You gotta go find it. And thank goodness for resources like yours in the book that are great starting places.
Mhm.
But I have found that I've had to just do some Google searches.
Yep.
And sometimes it for me in this new venture, it hasn't been about finding the money, finding the
Mhm.
free money. It's been finding ways around having to have the money.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
didn't make the investment in purchasing and hosting a website and all of the things that come along with it right away. I'm finding who has a free 30-day trial that I can get noticed on. Who
Mhm.
has something new that I can grasp a hold of and just get into the platform on the ground level? Maybe let me use the free edition of this, and this until I can move towards the other things. And I think that a lot of people don't get started because they feel like they've got to have the capital, you got to have the money, you got to have all the things already in the basket, when those are the things that are going to magnetize as you move along, but you've got to move first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are, whatever it is that you want to do, there's money to match it. So, next time, and it's not too late for what you're doing right now. It may be a $10,000 grant, but it's still a $10,000 grant for you to really now amplify,
Mm-hmm.
this powerful, celebration that you're doing today. And this money goes unawarded because people don't apply for it. So
Yeah.
no, but you're absolutely right. We have to give ourselves permission, to go ahead and do these things. And you can do, at least like you said, start, without the resources, and just be really creative, and also talk to other people. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised. Sometimes I get opportunities come through my desk, every single day, and I have no idea who is interested in this opportunity, because you know why? Because I know I'm not, but I mean, it's an opportunity that just, goes. And I'm just saying that we don't speak up either. We don't
That's
tell
right.
other people
Yeah.
what we want. You did, of course, like you said, you had someone to reach out to, and were able to, put this amazing celebration together. But for others out there, don't be afraid to talk to other people and to speak up and say what you want.
That's right. That's right. That's crucial. And I was experiencing a little bit of imposter syndrome, and I was experiencing a little bit of fear and apprehension around even making the ask. And some of that is, I know that it's a real thing now. It's no longer a dream in my head. It's no longer a wish or a fantasy or a goal somewhere out in the future tense. Like, it's here, it's happening, it's real. And
Yeah.
so I am thrilled and, again, very, very grateful for having other women in my life who are supportive without question. They know whatever it is you intend to put out into the universe is going to come in at a certain baseline, and they can trust you on that. So asking and just communicating, again, finding those next level friends, that circle of people who are going to uplift and amplify what you're doing, without expecting much in return, without, there being a quid pro quo and some of those other things that you think might be going on, just because they believe in you. And just because they believe in your cause. That's tremendous. I'm going to back up, if you will, to something else that you said that really just, like, before I forget it, when you talk about the kind of women who are drawn to your scholarship pageants, it's one thing when you walk into a room and you're the only Black face there, because immediately you are carrying the ancestors, your living sisters. You are carrying everything. You are carrying the entire race on your shoulders, and you know what it means to walk into a room and be the only Black face there. But when you walk into a room and every sister in there is just as beautiful as you are, and they run businesses in 501c3s, and they have degrees and degrees on top of degrees, and they have powerful thoughts, and they are well established when you move into that space and you see other women like you and you compete with those women, it takes a totally different kind of tune up and preparation to move into that space. Talk a little bit about the camaraderie that's built and the synergy that happens when women come in through your pageant system.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because you would initially think, okay, that's my competition. But one of the things that many of the women understand is that they are their only competition, and as a result, they have more in common with you than not, and they understand that we are in this race. It's better that we run this race together, right?
Amen.
And so it's really powerful to see women, like you said, who are powerhouses, who are accomplished young Black women like yourself, in one room. It's also powerful to see them on one stage. But that's another interview. Okay. But it's so powerful. And we have so many, not just success stories, but we also have so many stories of women who are now roommates, okay, living together. I even have a story that most people don't realize, but one of our very first queens in the early years is mom is now married to the other queen's, her sister queen's father. Like, don't even ask how that happened, but they became very best friends. They were both divorced. They became very best friends, and they would take vacations together, and the parents end up hooking up, right? So I mean, they're just these amazing stories. But you have young women, 80% of our queens are in graduate or professional school. Last year we had 4 who were practicing attorneys. But how powerful is it to come into a network? Because that's really what it is. It's a network and sisterhood, but it's a network where you can get on the phone. You no longer have to call or Google like what's wrong with you. You call your sister, your sister queen who is a medical doctor or who's a resident, and like, girl, what's wrong with me? So it's really powerful to be in that same space, because, and regardless of where you are on your journey, because I always say, don't compare yourself to others, because remember, God can bring you from the back of the line to the front of the line. So remember, your story is unique for you. And so you don't have to worry about, what somebody else is doing. But it's so empowering, so inspiring, so uplifting, to be a part of an organization where women really celebrate other women, and lift each other up.
And I have to thank you very specifically for opening up my division, because there was a time where I thought I was going to have to hang up my pageant shoes. When I graduated from college, I came back home and started working and everything. And I really felt like that was a moment that was past me. And then I got married, and I was like, oh well, surely now that's that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what I appreciate most about your Ms. division is that you've elevated that age range. It's no longer a thing for children or for little girls or for young women who are just starting out. You open the doors to some women who are truly accomplished and established in their careers and in their communities. And then you also eliminated the marriage restriction. Married women, divorced women, women regardless of their marital status are invited now. And
Mm-hmm.
then also for women like me who have kids, I had a whole literal 10-month-old baby in the room with me on competition weekend. And thank God for my mama, who is my ride or die road dog from now until. She
Mm-hmm.
was like, she did not hesitate. She took the train from Florida to here, and then we drove from here to DC. From here is Raleigh, North Carolina, for my national and international viewers. We went from North Carolina to DC for the competition with a 10-month-old baby in tow. And
Aw.
it just
And
was,
what happened? You walked
and,
away in a crown.
and it was one of those life defining moments. I was like, well, if I did that and came out on top,
Mm-hmm.
what is there to stop me from anything else that I want to do? And so I
Amen.
truly have to thank you for lifting up and allowing women like me a space to shine and show that there is Black girl magic in the world, yes, and that is good, but there is also Black woman magic in the world.
Amen.
And I'm so grateful that you created that space to lift that up. And I encourage women who see me on appearances and on interviews and whatnot, and they're like, "You still do?" I'm like, "Yes." Men still go out and play golf.
Mm-hmm.
That's their thing. This is mine. And
Mm-hmm.
so, just creating that space has allowed me to introduce older women,
Mm-hmm.
professional women, mothers to the world of pageantry.
Yeah.
And had it not been for you creating this division that specifically uplifts that, I would not have had that opportunity. So I am again grateful for that.
Oh, thank you. Well, you've been an amazing queen, and I'm so grateful for you and to have you as our official spokesperson for the organization and for this division. I think that we have to stop putting limitations on Black women. And so
Amen.
it was important for me to make sure that we celebrate, the entire woman, from every stage of life, because we all continue, as Michelle Obama said, we're all becoming, and
Yes.
that evolution of who we are doesn't stop. And we need women like yourself more than ever to show up and to take up space, and for even the next division for them to see themselves in you. So
Absolutely.
it's really powerful, as I said, and I'm just, of course, always thankful and grateful to have national queens and title holders like yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I know I speak for the other queens when I give you these recognitions and these accolades and these grateful when we all express our gratefulness for what you've created and sustained over the years, because you have not just started something, but you have remained engaged, and you've found new ways to move forward and ways of opening up and growing that are tremendous. You haven't just kind of let it stagnate and done what you always do, but you find ways to elevate and move forward. And that's tremendous and so needed in this space.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have just enough time to get into this little bubble. We talked briefly about the fact that I dug into your book in that early COVID funk, is what I refer to it as. So for folks who are struggling in this moment with COVID, changing the workforce, changing social upheaval with social distancing, with working from home, losing jobs, um, for folks who are struggling to determine the next moment in their lives right now in this really odd space that we're in, what advice do you have for them specifically?
I will do two things. First thing is go back to thinking about what's really important to you, what your values are, and what impact and difference can you make. Because
Mhm.
if you ask yourself that question every single time, it will lead you to your purpose and it will lead you to walking in purpose. And when you walk in purpose, listen, the universe will make room for you. You
Mm.
will be equipped with everything that you need to do the work that you were called to do. When the pandemic happened, the very first question I had was not, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Where's my income source going to come from? But the very
Mhm.
first question I had was, how can I help? What can I do? And one of the persons in my circle who I never even imagined would be on my, you know, would be in my inner circle on my to-do list is a medical doctor.
Mhm.
And so I called her and I said, in my mind, I thought about the disparities, right? The disparities in health
Yeah.
gap. And this pandemic was affecting more people of color, right? So that means now if they're hurting, if my people are hurting, I'm hurting.
There it
So
is. Yep.
so I decided, so I called her up and I said, what are we going to do? She's kind of used to these calls now for me. And because she actually is co-founded the Diabetes Awareness Day with me in West Africa. And so I said, what are we going to do? And she says, well, and she started telling me about some options that we could look into. And to make a long story short, we found a way to help a community with her being a physician, right? And me being, my sort of servant, leader.
Yeah.
And we found a way that we could really help with this pandemic because what we didn't realize at the time when we thought about this, but there was so much money pouring in from grants, once again, from grants and opportunities. So we were able to do a couple deals, not even realizing that they were these kinds of deals, and had money flowing, you know. But first and foremost, we were able to make an impact. And that's why I say if you start off with like, don't think about making a million or like make a movement, like what difference can I make? Let me tell you, it will open up a whole new world of possibilities. I would not be doing half the things that I'm doing today if it weren't for my servant heart, my servant spirit, or me first asking the question, what difference can I make? So I tell everyone this year has been, I know it's been challenging, there's been significant loss from people, but it's also an opportunity to reflect, to think about when you think about where do I go from here, think about what difference you can make, and then you'll begin to see in sometimes unconventional ways that there are opportunities that you never even thought about. Because remember, this
Yeah.
pandemic has really changed the way that companies do business forever,
That's right.
ever. Um, Twitter told their staff they will now work from home forever. So a lot of things have changed. So unfortunately, some things have stayed the same, but a lot
Yep.
of things have changed. So this is a time now to be innovative, to be creative, and to really think about the impact of what you want your legacy to look like, and then start from there. And I guarantee you, a whole world will open up for you.
That I have to amen everything that you just said. Amen and ashe. Because that is precisely where my mind went. And that is how this broadcast came about. I was like, we can't have I'm used to the Kwanzaa celebration that's held in the big like convention center, and everybody is there, and they're like the biggest gala gets a prize, and there's food everywhere, and the African dance troupe and the drummers, and like it's a huge ordeal. And that was not going to happen this year. And
Mhm,
so I said, there's no way that we can let Kwanzaa just kind of skate by us just because it's 2020. And
mhm,
so I was thinking over, and I was like, well, I wrote this book, but I need to do something more than just that. I can't just like let that sit there and suffice. I have all of these amazing people in my circle that I need to pull in. And so that's how this idea sparked. I called Lauren and we went from there, and then it was green lighted over there. And I put my list together and people started saying yes. And it has been such a tremendous blessing for me to just be able to move into this new mode of operation, learning to stream and set up your lights and your shot and get things, just right.
Mm-hmm.
This is a whole new skill set that I'm going to be able to apply other places. And I'm just really grateful for the mindset to learn and figure out opportunities rather than to just sit and sulk and be upset and wait for the next thing to come down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's an opportunity, when in challenging times, we also have to learn to be flexible. Because we do have two choices. We can be part of the problem or we can be part of the solution.
Come
And I
on.
always choose the latter. So, as I said, going into, the new year, I think about, like what impact do I want to make? Because I can guarantee you right now, there are opportunities that are just waiting with your name on it that you didn't even know were possible. And not only did I'm so used to traveling 265 days out of the year, and my traveling literally just became, it was international, it just came to a halt because
Yeah.
borders were closing. But you know what? I understood. Even though this was not what I had planned to do, but I understood the impact that non-travel and tourism, not having, like people traveling back and forth to many of these countries was going to have on their economy.
That's
And so,
right.
what I did, I was like, my people in West Africa, my people in South Africa, my people, in all over the diaspora, they need revenue because 80% of tourism dollars, 80% of a country's revenue comes from tourism dollars. So that means these people are hurting. These people are going to be starving. So my position was, how can I help get some of these, like countries back on track? And so I just decided, you know what, I'm going to create a little proposal and end up getting 2 contracts. But it's all based on the provision of helping. So that's
Yeah.
why I say, sometimes we have to, again, stop waiting for permission to do things. And I think that's probably the one thing that keeps us stuck sometimes is where we are, is
Mm-hmm.
that we're waiting for positions. Sometimes you have to create your own position.
Ooh, that hit home. That hit home. Amen and ashe. I love that. And you just mentioned, I know we're out of time. We are. But I cannot let you go without asking this one more thing. When it comes to self-actualization, self-determination, you have traveled broadly. Have you seen a difference in the way that your friends in South Africa, West Africa, across the diaspora where you have traveled, is there a difference in how they self-determine and self-actualize from African Americans here, Black folks here in America?
Let me tell you, one of the reasons that I go home and I call, West Africa, I call Sierra Leone, Gambia, all of these places home, okay, because they're my ancestral home. But one of the reasons why I go back is because I get this renewed sense of who I am and my identity. I get a renewed sense of, my purpose. Um, and when you go and you visit, and you see women, African women, walking miles under the hot African sun with baskets on their heads, whew, it does something to you. It makes you realize that you have a strength inside you that you didn't even know that you had. Oh, it's a big difference. And I encourage every African American to visit the motherland. There are 52 countries. Choose one. It will change your life, and you
Which
will be.
ones are at the top of your list?
I'm sorry.
Which ones are at the top of your list?
If you've never gone, I would say um, South Africa or Ghana.
Okay.
And of course, I have to say Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone is a goodwill ambassador for the country. But if you've never gone, Ghana is a place for me that I was literally in culture shock because, we're fed in the US, we're fed these stereotypical images and negative images about, Africa. And even our president,
Uh-huh.
said
Uh-huh.
these derogatory things. But um, these images weren't the same. It's not what I saw when I traveled there, you know. And so when I took Miss Black USA there in 2007 to
Mhm.
celebrate our 20-year anniversary. These young women had Hummer limousines waiting on the airport tarmac, waiting for them to take them to their hotel. The hotel resort that we stayed in had peacocks, on the balcony. It looked like the Four Seasons. But these aren't the images that we're fed.
Mhm.
In Ghana, I love going back and forth to Ghana because Ghana, when I go there, sometimes I sit in my room for like hours watching the television because it does something to your mind to see images of people that on every news channel, on every character that you can imagine, but they're all Black people, and it just does something to you. And I'm just sitting there like I'm watching a Black Barbara Walters, or I'm watching I mean, all your major, your A1 actors and characters, but in Ghana, they're all Black.
Uh,
And it's just so powerful. It just gives you such a sense of pride, and there's just nothing like it. It's really hard, to explain, but I would definitely encourage, I would say Ghana, probably the first one, because then you'll get the best of both worlds.
I love it. I cannot wait to get to the motherland myself. I am taking my baby when I go. I'm taking my husband. I'm taking my mama. It's going to be a whole thing. So I cannot
Absolutely.
wait. I just I have to thank you again from my heart, Karen Arrington, for being here with us this evening. The first time that I witnessed you in person was on the morning of the pageant. I had just finished my little oatmeal. I was like, I need to put something in this belly so I can make this milk and then go do this pageant. And you swooped into the room and you had such a commanding presence. I felt all of the energy come into the room with you, and you addressed the group in a manner that made it clear that whoever walked away with that crown, win, lose, or draw, you had high expectations for us and for our lives and for our work and for our service. And I understood very clearly that whatever happened in the next 12 hours, that Karen Arrington was going to be an ally and a mentor and someone very important in my life. And that has proven to be true. And I encourage every woman, every everyone to please, please, please go find Miss Arrington on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Our producer is going to pop those up on the bottom of the screen so that you can find her easily. Please, please, please read this book. Please go get your next level life. Not just because it won an NAACP Image Award, but it did. But also because it is a phenomenal book and it is going to give you some tools to leverage not just this moment, but future moments and really achieve something greater for yourself. Ms. Arrington, do you have another book suggestion for us so that we can increase our reading list for this Kwanzaa?
Well, a lot of my instruction, honestly, comes from the word.
Amen.
So, but I will say this. Your next level life is where Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap, meets Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes. So if you like personal development books like Believe Bigger, Don't Settle, for Safe, those are some of the other books that kind of fit into my category that I would recommend.
They're amazing as well. All right, everyone. I want to thank you all again for joining us on night 2 of our Kwanzaa Modern Celebration for 2020. Again, I am Chanda Branch, Mommy Caster, founder and cultural creative of Modern Black Mommy. If you would like to find my book, Your Guide to a Modern Kwanzaa Celebration, you can get that at tinyurl.com/Kwanzaa Mommy. And if you would like to track what's happening with me and Modern Black Mommy, you can go to tinyurl.com Modern Black Mommy. And those are the two places where you can find me. I want to thank again my special guest, Miss Karen Arrington, for joining us and helping us to lift the principle of Kujichagulia, self-determination, on our second night. I also want to thank our streaming sponsor, RDU On Stage, and our producer in the background, Lauren Van Hemert, who is making sure that we look great. Please join us again right here, 7:30 tomorrow night, when we celebrate and uplift Ujima, collective work and responsibility. I have two powerhouse guests for you tomorrow night. We have Kendall Harris, who is member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and is the director of the Clarence E. Leitner YMCA Achievers Program. And we also have Kina Day, who is otherwise known as the Savvy Urban Educator. They are two phenomenal guests. You are going to definitely want to hear from them. Again, that's 7:30 tomorrow night right here. And with that, oh, let's not forget, I have a special performance tomorrow night from music educator and master drummer Bobby Sherrard. He's going to be on tomorrow night. It's going to be amazing. So join us for night 3. I cannot wait to see you right here. Love to all. Good night and Heriza Kwanzaa. May your Kwanzaa be blessed. Good night, everyone.
Good night.